Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 2 of the Ottercar AI Racing Series. Today, here for the penultimate round of the championship here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. But this one's a little bit special. It is not just the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. We are specifically at the 2018 version of the Roval, the first time it was ever used in this format, and it was used by NASCAR. It was used one time before they ended up realizing that this was a stupid layout and it needed work. So, of course, it has made an appearance again every year since 2018 in the NASCAR Cup Series and the Xfinity Series, but they have made some changes to the track to make it a little bit safer because, believe it or not, everyone thought it was really, really stupid, and I don't entirely know how they managed to get away with actually starting the race in the first place with it being the way that it is. But you know what? If they decide to put a tire barrier in the middle of the racetrack, who are we to stop them? Of course, opened up back in 1960. That was when the original Charlotte Motor Speedway was built. The road course was not used until 2018. And not a lot of series have really been here. It's hosted NASCAR. It's hosted IMSA one time, and that was back during COVID back in 2020. That was a very weird IMSA race. It was like really late at night, way after sunset, pitch blackout except for the stadium lights, and absolutely pouring down rain. And I don't know, it was the one and only time IMSA's been at this track. I watched that race. I went back and watched it. I mean, the announcers sounded uncomfortable the whole time. It was just a really bizarre event. And frankly, I'd love to see it happen again, but I don't think we're going to see that happen anytime soon. Of course, also it's hosted Trans Am because, of course, why hasn't it? So for one time, once we actually brought the Ottercar Season 2 sort of half-assed Trans Am edition to a track that had hosted Trans Am. Go us. We're actually doing things correctly here. It just only took, you know, 11 races to get here. Speaking of getting here, though, final round of the round of 8 in the playoffs before we figured out our championship 4 and crown a champion next week at Sebring for the Ottercar Grand Slam Championship night. As it stands right now, coming into the round of 8, or at least the final round of the round of 8, Madcap currently won last week's event at Langley. So Madcap is locked into the round of 4 no matter what. Does not matter where Madcap finishes tonight, he is locked in. So only 3 spots left to make it into the championship battle next week. Right now, thirds Ash and Chris Cox are the 3 drivers with the most points that would be getting in. Then Ash, Ame Sakamori, Dwayne Day, and Rally are all below that cut line. If things don't change here tonight, they will all be knocked out. But who knows? There are 24 laps here this evening. Anything could go wrong. Any one of those 8 drivers could be taken out by the corner that kills you or by any of their competitors here this evening. So nothing is for certain, and we could see that playoff bubble be flipped upside down on its head for the second time here in the Ottercar AI Racing Series here in this season. That said, drivers still out making qualifying attempts. It looks like, actually no, just about everyone has wrapped things up, it looks like. Let's see here. Everyone has posted a qualifying time. It looks like, actually no, I believe drivers are still doing their second qualifying lap here. So let's give a minute just to make sure. They're either on their first or second. I'm not 100% certain either way. As it stands right now, looking at how qualifying is shaking up, Ash is our current pole sitter. Ash with an E, 1.2215 to his name so far. And Ash with an E, pretty close to that cut line in the playoffs right now. So him being on the pole is a pretty good thing to see. Just behind in second in terms of qualifying right now, a 122.21 is going to be Madcap. And of course, Madcap has locked his way into the round of 4. He is just here to have a good time. He could literally finish last place, get wrecked out, turn 1. He couldn't even just not even bother showing up. And he's good to go. He is locked in to the events of next week. And that's sad. It looks like I was wrong. Everyone has completed their qualifying lap. This was just everyone doing their in-lap. So in that case, we're going to go ahead and fast forward time here a little bit and get to the start of this thing. It is bound to be one heck of a show here this evening. And I'll tell you what, race fans, put your over, put your under. How many drivers will we see claimed by the corner that kills you? Let's see if we can't figure this out. We have not done a prediction here on the channel in a long time, so let's see if we can't get this sorted out. Let's see. There. Uh-huh. Anyways, now that we've got that sorted out, it looks like we're going to be doing a full pace lap, even though we're not supposed to be, but that's okay. That'll give us a little bit of time to go over how things will be lining up for today's event. Take a look down at those qualifying results. Of course, starting out on the pole here, a 122.152. That is going to be the 11 of Ash with an E, followed by none other than our current single driver locked into the Ottercar Season 2 Playoffs Championship Round of 4. That's going to be the Blazing Drunk driver of Madcap. Starting back in position number 3, though, in the number 37, that's going to be one of the other Blazing Drunk driver racing team members. That's going to be Queen Amatrine, sponsored by Riot Games. And up in 4th, with his best ever start here this season, going to be none other than the 818 of MF Vetus. Back in 5th, that's going to be another one of those playoff drivers. That is the 4 of Dwayne Day, followed by one of the Shelter for Strays drivers. That's going to be the 800 of Deeg, starting back in 6th. Back in 7th, in the number 7, it's going to be none other than Mr. Kevin 11 in the Shelter for Strays entry, followed by the 21 of August, who's been having a bit of a quiet season, starting up inside the top 10 here. Back in 9th, it's going to be the 3rd and final member of the Blazing Drunk Drivers Racing Team in the 776, so all of the bad drivers will be starting inside the top 10 here this evening. Then back in 10th, it's going to be none other than the 26 of Rally, the hybrid development team driver. Rally really needs to have a good run here this evening. Locked into the round of 8 back during the round of 12, and then proceeded to finish last place last week at Langley. So Rally is at the very bottom of the playoff standings right now. Basically, they need a win here tonight in order to get into the championship 4. Speaking of playoff drivers, back in 11th, that's going to be the 69 of Chris Cox, who is also competing to try and get into that final spot. Same with the other hybrid development team driver, the number 2 of Ame Sakuramori, who is in just as much of a difficult spot as their teammate of Rally. And Ame actually, I believe, is back in 18th in the regular season point standings right now. So to be this far into the playoffs when having that bad of an overall general season, Ame is going to need to do some serious work here tonight, but it certainly is possible that we might see one of these hybrid development team drivers get into the playoffs next, or into the Championship 4 next week. Starting back in 13th, though, in one of the Kill the President racing team drivers, that's the 44 of Limited Time, followed by the 3 of Thirds, one of the Shelter for Strays drivers, and the only Shelter for Strays driver currently in the playoffs. Back in 15th, it's going to be Oh You Know in the 420, followed by Bloody Wolf in the 93 back in 16th. 17th going to be going back to the 985 of Jeremy Albertson. As you can see down there, drivers heading through the Kills You corner. Having a little bit of trouble there under the pace lap, so you can imagine how treacherous that corner will be at speed. Back in 18th, it's the 777 entry. That's going to be Sarah something, followed by the 030 of Ash, who is still in the playoffs as well. So Ash has a lot of work here to do tonight as well. Back in 20th, that's going to be the 1 of Med, followed by the 88 of Ashley back in 21st. Then supposedly, I'm back in 22nd, which means Pav in the 12, Zoe in the 666 entry, 23rd, 24th, did not successfully set a qualifying time. Then it's going to be Sarkin, Lake, and Drop Table Roster rounding out the tail end of the field. That said, green flag is up in the air here at the Charlotte Roval, and drivers are having a little bit of trouble getting through that first corner. That's another part of the track that has been very questionable and controversial throughout the ages of having the green flag fly coming up to a chicane. So far, Madcap off to an early lead. Then it's all side by side, all the way back. Queen Amatrine down below Deeg, and it looks like she is going to make the pass on that number 800 machine. Dwayne Day up here with Kevin 11 as well as they head down into, oh, looks like maybe trouble for Deeg. Deeg got pushed off the speedway there in that 800 machine, so Deeg's going to be losing a lot of ground here as the rest of the field works their way around. Madcap leads the way. MF Vitas running back in second right now as drivers start to make their way towards the one and only corner that kills you. Madcap already up to a 1.75 second lead as we head through the chicane. So far, so good. Everyone's playing nice. Oh, nope, never mind. There we go. There's trouble. Kevin 11's around, and immediately the caution flag flies as the Kills You corner claims its first victim. And, well, that looks like it's going to be a DNF for none other than Mr. Kevin 11. All it takes is one little slip up through that chicane and your car is done. There's no getting away from that. Of course, in real life, those tires aren't cemented there. Generally, every time someone hit it, the tire barrier would just go flying away. But here, no. That tire barrier is just a cement wall. It is a brick. And as you can see, hitting it has about the same effects as driving directly into a brick wall. How about we ride on board here with Mr. Kevin 11, though, see what he saw going down into that incident in this lovely helmet camera we have of him. Heading down into the chicane, goes over the curb. That's the first issue. Don't hop the curb if you want to live. So just like that, under caution for the first time here today for the Kills You corner 75. None other than the corner that kills you, killing our first driver of Mr. Kevin 11. And it looks like Rally's actually had to make the call down to pit lane. Rally picked up a bit of damage from Kevin 11 as well. And I'll tell you what, I hate to say those magic words, but this looks a little bit like there are some playoff implications here for the driver of that number 26 machine. Rally basically needed to win this race to get into the championship 4, and right now being scored back in 25th. At least going to be going one lap down here, if not more. So definitely not the evening that Rally wanted to have here tonight, and that very much might be the 26 car's playoff dreams dashed. Up at the front, though, before that caution flag flew, it looks like MF Beatus actually was able to take the lead from Ash with an E. So MF Beatus, who has spent almost the entirety of this season in last place in the regular season championship points, is now leading laps here at Charlotte. And who knows, we might just see that 818 end up taking home a race win, despite the overall string of just terrible performances by that driver. Let's take a look down here at their stats right quick. MF Beatus, so far here in Ottercar, their best finish was a 7th back at New Hampshire a couple of weeks ago for the Why is the Canadian Anthem playing 65. Then it was a string of bad luck with 22nd, 24th, 23rd, 25th, 17th, 16th, 14th. Took home an 11th last week at Langley, but generally MF Beatus has finished outside the top 20 every single race so far here this season. That said, it doesn't look like we have any takers down on pit lane, so we are going to go ahead and ruin your immersion to shorten this caution lap down so we can get back to racing here. And I lied that we actually had takers down on pit lane, but it's not really a big deal. This track is so long and these caution flags are so long that all these drivers should be able to do their regular pit stops and get back up to the pace car before we go green flag racing. Right now, looks like Madcap, Zoe, and Lake made the call down to pit lane. A 14-second stop for Madcap, 6 seconds for Zoe and Lake. Deeg, however, has been down there for over 25 seconds now, so it looks like Deeg might actually be getting some damage repaired here. Kevin 11 down as well. Kevin 11, oh well, Kevin 11 was involved in that incident, so never mind, that's no big deal there. So only scheduled pit stops for Madcap, Zoe, Lake, and potentially Deeg. Going to be 21 to go here for round number 11 of the season once we go green flag racing once again. So who knows? For those of you who placed your bets on there being 0 victims for the Kills You Corner, unfortunately you are already incorrect. So we're at least in the 1 to 3 range now. Maybe end up getting to the 3 to 5. We'll just end up having to see how this thing plays out. But right now, things aren't looking good for these Ottercar drivers. I'll give them that much. Things do not look particularly great for them. Fortunately, here on the virtualiRacing.com platform, we don't have to worry about repairing that tire wall, because that was the big thing in the real-life races here during 2018, is every time there was a crash into that tire wall, the cautions would last a whole lot longer than they really needed to, because they had to go back and repair the tire wall, move it back into place, go through the whole process of getting it ready to go again, only for someone to drive straight into it again anyways. So naturally, every subsequent race since then has not had that tire wall there. You gotta wonder why. I see no reason why they might have removed it. Regardless, pace car is off, and once again we are actually taking the green before the chicane, which is still a very awkward corner, probably one of the worst thought out corners of every track so far, as we're 3 wide here for a moment. Third's falling back and losing a couple positions. And it looks like maybe trouble for a couple of drivers further up in the front. Oh, it looks like everyone was actually doing all right here. Just a little bit of confusing on the timing and scoring here, but it looks like we've gotten things sorted out. Ash with an E back up to the race lead, and you can actually see Deeg back out on the speedway a little bit further up. Deeg being scored a lap down, so right now Deeg just trying to avoid being put even further down right now. Ash with an E is catching pretty quickly here in that number 11 machine. It's looking like probably 4 or 5 car lengths between our current race leader and that number 800. But who knows, we could end up having a caution flag flying again right here. Just a matter of people manage to take the Kills You Corner without necessarily getting killed. So far so good, but that 2 wide coming down in the chicane is a little bit scary, but no, they all managed to navigate it all right. How else are we looking? Believe it or not, everyone made it through the corner that kills you without being killed this time around. We are going to have a full lap of green flag racing actually put in the books here, race fans. I did not know that it was possible. So Ash will be taking home the title of having at least led 1 green flag lap here. Still a pretty close battle between himself, MF Vitas, and Queen Emtrine, sponsored by Riot Games, as we have trouble. Lake has absolutely binned it in turn number 1. I don't think she's going to be able to get that car going once again. No, she is not. So once again, the caution flag will be flying here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And it looks like right on time, as well as a couple of drivers all going off the speedway here, it looks like. Valinar's off the track, Queen Amatrine's off the track, Ash is off the track. Ash was our race leader at one point, now being scored back in the 19th position. So 2 separate incidences happening at the same time there. But first, let's go back, take a look at what happened to Lake, and then we'll try and get a breakdown of what all happened to our race leaders as well. So going back here to Lake, this was coming to the start-finish line in that number 330 all by herself right now. She's not really in a battle with anyone, so It's looking like just a little bit of a skill issue here. Sure enough, locks the tires, and surprise, there's a tire barrier there. Starting to notice a trend here. I think really tires are just the enemy of the Ottercar AI Racing Series drivers. If there are tires, there will be trouble for them. It's just as simple as that. Oh, never mind. She didn't even hit the tire wall. Okay. That would explain some of the damage. She just drove headfirst basically into a concrete wall. Good work. Of course, I will always remind Lake that before the start of Ottercar Season 1, she proudly proclaimed that her racing line was mid. And I'll tell you what, race fans, that racing line right there was most certainly pretty mid. Get one last look at this before we go back and see how things are going in the live view, as Lake ever so expertly navigates straight into a wall. So that's going to be the race over for the 330 machine. Let's take a look back. Let's see what happened to our race leader as well. We did see Ash and E go off the Speedway, and actually need to go a little bit further back. It looks like most of our race leaders all just blew turn 6. Sure enough, at least much more gentle impacts. That's an impact they all can recover from, but not exactly what you want to be doing when you are the race leader. Regardless, we jump back to the live view, and I believe we can go one to go now. We might not have a full lap done. No, we do not. So we gotta wait here for just a moment for the pace car to get back out to the start-finish line before we can shorten down this caution. Quite the heartburn turn for Lake. Yes, you are correct. That is actually what the real-life commentators of this race started calling that corner. They made it heartburn turn. And yeah, that's not even the corner that kills you. So really, there's multiple corners that kill you here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It just so happens that one of them was removed after the very first race on this layout. The other ones are still there. That corner in turn 1, that is still the exact same here in 2024. Generally, the impacts into that wall are a little bit less dramatic in real life than what we just saw there with Lake, but they very much still happen. And will we have any takers down on pit lane? Looks like Jeremy Albertson is going to be the only driver to make the call to come down. No Ash with an E coming down as well. Queen Ametrine also coming down. So everyone who had that little scrape with the outside wall going down into turn 6 there, coming down to get the damage checked out. I would imagine that they're going to go ahead and have their routine pit stops done here as well. I mean, we still have 18 to go. Going to be 17 to go when we come to the green. So we'll see how long these drivers actually spend down here on pit lane. Of course, Ash with an E is one of these playoff drivers, so that has playoff implications for him. Madcap being down here, on the other hand, doesn't really matter, because again, Madcap is locked into the round of 4. He can finish last place here tonight and be A-OK heading into the championship next week. But looking at these pit stop times, everyone's in the range of 26 to 30 seconds as Jeremy Albertson comes back out. Yeah, it looks like this is pretty much a routine stop for all of these drivers so far. Up at the front, though, going to be the 2 green cars in the field, leading us to the green flag this time around. It's going to be none other than Dwayne Day and MF Beatus. Dwayne is a playoff driver. Of course, MF Beatus is not. Ame Sakaramori, a driver we were talking about earlier that needs to have a really, really good race here tonight. Sure enough, Ame has worked its way up to 3rd, but will it be enough to get over the playoff bubble and make it into the championship 4? I think Ame either needs to take home the win here today or have the rest of the playoff drivers have a very, very bad night. And with Dwayne Day just in front of it, I don't know how good the chances of that happening are going to be, but we shall see. Drivers currently trying to get sorted out into the correct running order right now. It looks like Rally is back out on the Speedway, and Rally is actually going to be giving the lucky dog, so Rally will be getting 1 lap back here. And I think that'll actually be enough to put Rally back on the lead lap, if I'm not mistaken. Rally's going to work on getting back up to the tail end of the field here, or at least get as much of a gap as possible so that the leaders don't catch that 26 machine and put it a lap down again. But in the meantime, we're getting ready to take the green flag for the 3rd time here this evening. Going to be 2 green cars meeting Barney the flag man as he takes the green. And sure enough, the pace car is off, so these drivers are free to go as soon as they want. And once again, we will be going before even getting to the chicane. Green flag up in the air here at Charlotte. And once again, incredibly slow through that chicane. Really kind of awkward to try and get up to race speed before one of the heaviest braking zones on the track. But it looks like Dwayne Day is going to have the advantage going down into turn number 1. Already up to a 1.1 second lead over the rest of the field as MFBetis starts to fall behind here a little bit. Chris Cox side by side with Ame Sakuramori. Both of those are playoff drivers that need to do good here in thirds. Nearly during Chris Cox there. Thirds also a playoff driver. Been doing pretty dominant here this season. Thirds also the current regular season championship points leader in that 3 machine. As it looks like MFBetis has gone off the Speedway. He's drifted out into the tire barrier. Med comes to a stop as well, but no damage on either of those cars. They're able to get it rolling here again. And once again, we find ourselves heading down to the corner that kills you at speed. Will these drivers be able to make it through the corner without anything too catastrophic happening? Let us see here. Dwayne Day is completely uncontested, so Dwayne really has no excuse for messing this up. And Dwayne manages to do it with a bit of flair, making the jump happen there as well. And as we head further around the field, let's jump further back. How are we doing? So far, so good through that corner. And it looks like everyone is going to make it through Kills You Corner. Now heading down into turn 17, final corner of the track. Now at speed, it's a little bit less awkward than trying to take the green coming down into it. Currently looking down at Ash with an E back in 15th right now. Not a great place to be, especially after he was leading laps earlier on in the events of this race. Their playoff drivers pretty much evenly distributed all around the field right now. We have 4 of them up inside the top 10, with Ame Sakuramori currently being the highest running playoff driver. Dwayne Day has actually made the call to come down pit lane under the screen, as we have, looks like August has gone off the Speedway. Sure enough, August once again going off into those tires. Ash in the 030 machine also doing that as well, and he's going to find himself at cone. Once again being polite, waiting for the rest of the field to go by, because the AI drivers really just don't have much of a choice in that. But now we find the 44 of Limited Time leading this race. Limited Time, despite also being a driver that had a very bad run in the season, he managed to just barely get himself into the playoffs in that 44 machine on a win. Got eliminated from the round of 8. And now finds himself at least trying to get a little bit of redemption in the form of taking home a race win, even if it doesn't really do much to help him here. But there's always bragging rights on the line, and there always is the regular season point standings for all those drivers who are not here in the playoffs. A little bit further back, looking down at Oh You Know, right on the tail of that 3 machine of thirds, trying to see if he can't find and get up inside the top 3 here. I don't believe Oh You Know has actually gotten a top 5 finish so far here in season number 2. Had a pretty decent running back in season 1 in the tour mod, but here in the super late model, Oh You Know, not been having the best of luck here. These road courses just don't seem to be working out for him, and generally when you're consuming alcohol while driving, things don't go super great for you in terms of performance. We're running up inside the top 5 right now, sandwiched between 2 playoff drivers that are very desperate for points right now. Thirds, not so much. Thirds is pretty comfortably above the cut line. She's currently the highest scoring playoff driver that has not locked in with a win to the championship 4 yet. And once again, we managed to successfully get around the Killsview corner without too much theatrics here. So it looks like drivers are starting to be a little bit more patient with each other, a little bit more forgiving. And we actually might get some green flag racing going here and have some actual battles and strategy around the track and not just be under caution the entire time. Currently looking down at Queen Amatrine, sponsored by Riot Games, and Jeremy Albertson running back in 13th and 14th respectively. Jeremy Albertson up +3. And looks like Queen Amatrine's actually down -10 right now in that 37 machine. Just ahead, Ash with an E battling it out with Pav in that 12 machine. Pav managed to take home a win back at Virginia International Raceway, but it was after the playoffs already started, so unfortunately it wasn't really able to give him any benefit. Besides, again, bragging rights. Always is nice to have some bragging rights, but those won't really help you win a championship. But he certainly, it was not for a lack of trying. In the final round of the regular season, Pav wrecked out the race leader to try and take home the race win, but unfortunately got a bit of damage from the incident himself and just was not able to capitalize on it. So he didn't make the cut to get into the playoffs, but he did still take home a race win. Now running back in 9th right now in that 12 machine, up +14 from where he qualified. As we have trouble, Queen Amatrine, I believe, no, that was Drop Table Roster. Drop Table Roster hard into the tire barrier. I can't even find him on the timing scoring. There he is. He is upside down. The caution flag flies, and at a very difficult, inopportune time for some of these drivers. Oh, you know, Chris Cox, Sarah Something, Ashley, Pav, MF Beatus, and Ash all just made the call to come down pit lane under the green flag. So they're all going to be losing positions by this yellow flag coming out. Definitely just a poorer chance of circumstance there for those drivers, but not a whole lot that can be done about that. And still a long race left to go to get things sorted out. But for now, let's take a look down at the 369 of Drop Table Roster as he becomes the second car to fall victim to the corner that kills you. Ooh, and that is a violent impact if I've ever seen one. Ripped both the front tires off, nearly sent him over the catch fence and into the stands. Would not be the first time that we have had Ottercar drivers be launched into the grandstands for a race, but it would be the first time on a road course. But unfortunately, just shy of managing to make that incredible achievement happen. But that is most certainly race-ending damage for the driver of the 369. We are not going to be seeing him back out on the Speedway here this evening. Not a chance. Just got a bad run going down into the chicane, hit the tire curb, and once you hop that curb, there's not a whole lot that can be done to really keep the car going in the right direction. You just basically lose all steering from there on, and fortunately Drop Table Roster just not able to get the car stopped in time. That said, I think we need to get another look back at this ride on board with Queen Amatrine, as she just barely managed to go underneath that car. Right on board with the helmet cam here. This could have been very catastrophic for the driver of that 37 machine. She was very smart to back out of that battle and still managed to pick up a bit of damage. It looks like that hooked the car into the outside wall, but all things considered, that could have been substantially worse for the Gemstone Dragon. So under caution for the third time here at Charlotte Speedway Roval. Looks like Queen Amatrine is going to make the call down to pit lane. She's going to try and get that damage fixed up after that incident. And frankly, I don't blame her. And there you can see her driving past some of the corpses of her comrades there. There's Lake in the 330, also Drop Table Roster in the 369. They managed to put new front tires on the 369 machine, which can't be said for the 330, who is still missing one. So Drop Table Roster As much of an enigma as he is, it looks like he has a pretty decent pits crew here, because I didn't think that they'd be able to get anything put back on that car. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that they haven't just retired it for the evening, but they're going to keep it out, so more power to them. Does look like we're having a good deal of calls to come down onto pit lane, though. Ame Sakuramori coming down. Bloody Wolf looks like going to be coming down as well. Med also down on the apron, so it looks like all these drivers will be coming down to pit lane this time around. At this point, we're far enough in the race that these should all be scheduled stops. Right now, the only 3 drivers that have not come down, though, Limited Time has not made a pit stop yet, and actually he's going to make the call to come down after all. In which case, I'm not really sure what all these cars on the apron are doing, but someone has spun Ame Sakuramori around, so I don't know what the deal is there, what these people are up to. And it doesn't seem like Ami's able to get that 2 machine rolling, so I don't know what the deal is here. But apparently there's a little bit of struggling going on. And Ame is going to have to take the tow back to pit lane, so once again, I get to say our favorite word of major playoff implications. I don't know. You know what might have happened? I almost wonder if they ran out of fuel, and that's why they pulled down to the apron, and then maybe Ame ran out of fuel a little bit faster than Bloody Wolf did, and that's why Blue turned it. But regardless, Ame's going to take the tow down to pit lane. It looks like Bloody Wolf has to take the tow down to pit lane as well, so that's exactly what happened. Those 3 drivers all just ran out of fuel trying to come down to pit lane. Which means that Limited Time in that 44 is very, very lucky to have made it down, because he had not pit either, which means he was just running on fumes and just barely managed to make it in. And those pit stops, having to take the tow, is like an additional minute time penalty on your pit stop. So making it down to pit lane is very imperative. You know, it looks like Valnar is going to be given the lucky dog, getting put back on the lead lap here in the 776. And we're going to wait here for a moment to hopefully have more of the field catch back up to the pace car. I don't want us going green with so much of the field still back at the tail end of the track. So we'll give it just a moment here for everyone to get caught back up. So we might actually have to do a full length caution here if they can't get caught back up. Like if they don't make it before the Kills You corner, we'll go another lap of yellow. But it does look like most of the field is starting to make their way back up now. MF Vitas at the front of those cars who all came down for pit stops. They're trying to catch back up to the pace car here. And yeah, it looks like we're good. It looks like everyone's going to make it, so we are going to go ahead and throw the 1 to green. So going to be 10 to go when we take the green flag. Ash with an E and Jeremy Albertson in your front row. So Ash has recovered from that blunder he had in the early goings of this thing. Then it's going to be 2 blocker cars between our front row. That's going to be August and Oh You Know, our next cars. And everyone behind them is just going to be in a very miserable situation coming to the green, as they have these substantially slower blocker cars going to be blocking them in the chicane. That's that green flag back up in the air, heading down into turn 17, and sure enough, the blocker cars are blocking. I'd imagine we're going to see most of them all try and pull up to the high line. Yes, they are, but there's one of them that's not quite able to, and everyone's just going to send it 3 wide with the blocker cars. They really don't care. They just want to get around as quickly as possible so they can get back up to racing with the cars that are actually being scored here in the Ottercar Racing Championship. And so far, so good. Everyone's doing a fairly decent job of muscling their way around these slower cars. Currently looking down at Sarkin in the 901 machine, up plus 13 from where he qualified, running back in 12th right now. Sark came very close to taking home the race win at the race back at Oran Park for round number 2 of the season. That was his best finish, and I believe that was a second for the Australian driver. But so far, the rest of the season, not great, not terrible. It's been kind of just lukewarm for that 901 machine. Right now running up inside of 12th and passing his way up into 11th now. And now running up inside the top 10 just like that. So, I mean, top 10 run is pretty solid, all things considered, but probably not quite the season that he was hoping for. But now we're heading down into the Killsview corner once again. Is everyone going to navigate it successfully? It looks like yes, we are. No theatrics down through the Killsview corner this time around. We still have these two cars that are being scored a lap down to keep an eye on. And it looks like both of them will make it through without too much difficulty. So let's go back up to this main battle going on here. Sarkin caught right in the middle of everything, but looks like it's MF Beatus in 6 all the way back down to Ashley in the 88, all in this little bubble right here. Madcap in this battle as well, but it looks like Madcap is being scored a lap down, so this is not a battle for position for the number 38 machine, which is unfortunate because he was leading laps at one point here in tonight's event. But it wouldn't be an Ottercar race if we didn't see the field get flipped absolutely upside down on its head and then get shuffled around a little bit. And then suddenly still have someone who started up at the front end up in last place and then come back up to the front. Who knows how it works anymore? It's just all around chaos around the Speedway at all times, and that's pretty much just how it ends up going. Sarkin able to run Chris Cox though, now on the trail of Sarah something, who is another driver we have really not talked about all that much at all here in season number 2. Just been having a very quiet season, as it sounds like we have trouble down into Killsview corner, and sure enough everyone is coming to a stop. Something catastrophic has happened, and it looks like Oh You Know and several other cars have all been taken out, and sure enough caution flag will be flying for the 4th time here this evening. So we're now up to 3 cars, potentially even 4 or 5, depending on how things look when we get a look back at this incident. But the body count continues to rise. It looks like everything started with Oh You Know battling out side by side with August, limited time just behind. But we've established that this corner is not a passing zone, and Oh You Know going for the pass, locks up the tires. And really, it looks like Oh You Know just slingshotted into the 21, and that I think August would have been okay if Oh You Know hadn't been rocketed into the side of him. So let's take another look back here, try and get another view of this. Might even have to break out the slow-mo camera for this one. So let's slow it down. Let's break out the slow-mo camera. Would have August in that black number 21 been able to make the corner without Oh You Know absolutely bidding it through here? Yes, he would have. So Oh You Know just wrecked out August. This is entirely Oh You Know's fault. Getting way too much airtime, not quite as much as Drop Table Roster here earlier, but get another look down at this, get a top-down view of things from our lovely chopper camera as we get one more look at this incident. If August was just a tiny little bit faster, he would have made it and not gotten left reared like that. Limited time also getting collected in the incident, though not quite as dramatically in that 44. It looks like he just got a little bit of damage, I guess really on the roof there. Maybe a little bit of, oh, never mind. That actually ripped off one of Limited Time's tires. Never mind. That's actually a catastrophic incident for Limited Time. I don't know how that took his tire off, but here we are. So that certainly makes things a little bit awkward here on the Speedway. Ash still being scored as your race leader. MF Beatus back in second. Let's see if anyone makes the call to come down pit lane, presumably for the final time here this evening. So far, everyone on the Speedway has pitted at least once. Most of just about everyone in your top 10 has pitted twice, with the exception of Ash with an E, and it looks like he's actually going to be making the call to come down pit lane. Provided that 11 machine doesn't get any damage, this should be the final stop for that driver. Let's see what the call is down on pit lane here. I'm curious to see if he ends up trying to put tires on or something, or if he's just going to be taking fuel and calling it a day, as he drives past the corpses of all of his comrades that have been claimed by the corner that kills you. As he comes down into his box, what is the 11 machine going to be doing here? Now, I'm not seeing them lift the car up, so I think I want to say this is just a fuel stop, but this is longer than a fuel and tire stop. So it looks like maybe they found something wrong under the hood of that 11 machine, or they're making some sort of adjustments to it. But that was definitely a longer pit stop than I would have expected here on this speedway. Looking like Med is going to be getting the lucky dog this time by, and that will put Med back on the lead lap. So we'll have 16 drivers minus the blockers, so 12 drivers still on the lead lap when we come to take this green flag. MF Vetus going to be the control car leading the race. Coming down to the green. Pav on the outside in that 12 machine, up plus 21 right now. Even if he's not in the playoffs, we could potentially see that number 12 machine go 2 wins here in Ottercar, but who knows? Other cars to talk about just behind Sarah Something, Sarkin, both having extremely good runs compared to what they normally have. Same with MF Beatus. Really everyone in your top 5 right now, with the exception of Chris Cox, who is a playoff driver. Everyone in your top 4 are drivers that we really do not traditionally see up at the front of the field, and this is going to make this a very spicy restart for them, as all of them push for what might be their only chance to take home a win here in Ottercar season number 2. A couple of those lap cars being told to move out of the way so that Ash with an E can be put back in the correct spot. Of course, lap cars are sent to the tail of the pacing line. But it's going to be 6 to go when we take the green, which also means that we are going to be going no cautions, if at all possible. Really, we can throw a caution. If something catastrophic happens on this lap, we can throw a yellow. But if we complete this, get on to 5 to go, then there will be no more caution flags thrown. Green flag back up in the air. MF Beatus Pav lead the field to the start-finish line. As we have trouble a little bit back in the back. That was a very awkward start here, and we're 3 wide. Coming across the start-finish line as everyone tries to navigate their way around the blocker cars and get sort of back up to where they need to be, battling for the race lead against other cars in their class. At least, if nothing else, the blocker cars are doing their job of blocking. Up the front, though, MF Vetus, Sarah Something, Sarkin all have pulled away from Pav here just a little bit. Of course, I say that, he actually pretty much sets right back up to the bumper of Sarkin. Ashley in the 88 up in that battle as well, but MF Vetus has pulled up to about a second lead now. There's something also now spreading out a little bit to about a second gap. So everyone up in the front starting to spread out from each other just a little bit. Ashley and Ash still pretty close together. Jeremy Albertson, August. Despite the incident, August is still running up inside the top 10. At least to the best of his ability. It does look like there is damage to the nose of that car still. But now, once again, we find ourselves heading down into Kelsey Corner. How are things looking down there? So far, so good. Everyone is generally behaving themselves, and as we head down into the final chicane here, going to be getting the big high five from Brian the Flagman. 5 laps left to go here at Charlotte, which means no more caution flags, regardless of what happens here. We will be finishing this race under green. Jeremy Albertson going to be making the call to come down pit lane under the screen. Certainly an interesting strategy for him. Not quite sure what the deal is there, but he's going to have to come down pit lane. That's probably going to bump him back down to the tail end of the field here. Currently looking down at Sarkin, Pav, Ashley, and Ash in the 030 machine. Ash not with me. Right now, currently the highest running playoff driver here this evening, which all things considered is pretty solid considering he started back, I want to say, outside of the top 15, maybe even outside of the top 20 here. But speaking of top 20s, some crazy numbers up for the front. MF Vetus only up +3, but Sarah Something up +16, Sarkin up +22. Pav up plus 19, Ashley up plus 16. So these drivers up at the front of the field have made some very crazy gains so far here in tonight's race. And we once again head down into the Killsview corner. Almost trouble there for Pav as he nearly makes contact with Sarkin, but looks like everyone gets through there so far in this lead pack without too much theatrics. Now heading down into the final chicane once again. Ashley goes wide, tries to think about making a move there. Not quite able to. Oh, she gets the nose down. She might actually be able to make the move on that number 901 machine and side by side the line, but Sarkin is going to have the preferred lane going down into turn 1, but he's going to get on the gas, or get on the brakes really early. Ashley getting 3 cars in one right there, getting around Sarkin, Ash, and Sarah something down into turn number 1. Now finding yourself up in third, battling it out with the 12 machine of Pav, as MF Vitas somehow manages to pull up to a 5-second lead here. And I say that MF Vitas goes off the Speedway. He's going to bring it back on, but it's going to be right in front of the rest of the field. So that 5-second advantage he had just got thrown out the window for no good reason. Pav now right behind and potentially in striking distance heading down into the Killsview corner, but really everyone in our top 10 is all within a pretty tight bubble of each other, all things considered with how big this track is. Things look pretty decent all around the field. It's going to be, looks like 2 seconds back to Zoe, another 13 seconds back to Jeremy Albertson. And once again, our main front runners make it through the Killsview corner without issue for another time, and Pav is looking to try and make a move for the lead here going into the final corner. Goes a little bit wide, not quite able to make that move happen. Ran too wide coming out of NASCAR 4. Now back to a 0.5 of a second battle for the race lead. As Ashley goes to try and make a move on that 12 machine, she has made some crazy gains in the last 2 laps, but not able to make a move on that 12 this time around. 3 to go here at Charlotte. And again, caution flag will not be thrown for any reason, so if you wreck out at this point, sucks to suck pretty much. The race will be ending under green no matter what. Lord willing, iRacing gives AI races the potential to have overtime sometime soon, because it's really silly that you can have overtime in an actual multiplayer races, but AI races you can't. So maybe if we're lucky, we will get overtime attempts added to AI racing here in the next couple of updates to the simulator, and we could have some pretty crazy format changes here to Ottercar if Ottercar AI racing was able to have the full set of potential rule changes you can make to an official multiplayer session. Once again, heading down into the Killsview corner, MF Vitas had a pretty solid lead, but he's going to lose ground, and Pav's hard into the outside wall. That is going to be a race ender for the number 12 of Pav, but like I said, we are keeping this thing green no matter what, so that's going to be Pav finishing with a best possible finish of 23rd here. Side by side going through the chicane here. Now looking down at Ash in the 030 machine just behind Sarah Something. Still the highest running playoff driver right now in the 030. Running up in the 4th position, and coming into this event, Ash was being scored below the cut line in the playoff standing. So running how things are right now, I don't have the math for the points. We're going to have to do that after the race concludes. But where he's running right now might be what Ash needs to get into the championship for and battle for the title next week at Sebring. And Dwayne Day goes off the track. Dwayne is a playoff driver, but he's already being scored several laps down, so that's not really a huge deal. Now we once again find our drivers heading down into the Killsview corner. MF Vitas manages to make it through, and once again up to a 5-second lead just about. Now everyone else heading on down through. So far, so good. Everyone makes it through the Killsview corner. This time around, I've kind of lost track of where we are in terms of how many victims it's claimed. I believe we're at 5 right now. But either way, white flag is up in the air. And MF Vetus leads the field with a 4-second lap. Really, the big question is going to be, is he going to absolutely blow turn 6 again? Because it wouldn't be the first time that he's done it. And if so, once again, we're going to see that 5-second lead just absolutely disappear and potentially have the rest of the field catch back up to him. Ashley starting to close some ground, has it down to a 4.5 second gap just about. And Ashley's actually going to overdrive the corner. She goes down into the grass. That is going to be Ashley's attempts over with just about. So now Ash in the 030 running up in second. As long as Ash can make it to the checkered flag, he should be good to go on points to make it in to the championship 4. The sheer amount of playoff drivers outside the top 20 right now is a little bit scary to see. Again, it depends on the math. It depends on how the math plays out. But I would not be surprised if we end up seeing our championship 4 being Ash with an E, and Chris Cox along with Madcap right now, because everyone else in the playoffs is just so far behind. That's that checker flag up in the air. It's going to be MF Vetus, who has consistently had the worst season so far in Ottercar season number 2, taking home the checkered flag here at Charlotte. And we have trouble as Sarkin goes off the speedway. Sarkin was running up inside the top 5, loses a ton of ground. He's now back in 8th. Make that 9th now. Sarkin has not crossed the start-finish line yet. As long as he sits there, he's going to keep losing spots. He's got to get going right now. And he's going to go once again, going all the way back down to 10th position as he crosses the start-finish line, but he still crosses the start-finish line nonetheless. Let's take a look back here. Get one last view of whatever happened to Sarkin there, because again, he was running up inside. Oh, that's what happened. That wasn't really a driver error. He just found the strategically placed landmine. I think it's been a couple of drivers since we've had a landmine go off on the racetrack, but sure enough, that landmine, final corner of the final lap, is what's going to be costing that 901 machine a potential top 5 finish here tonight. Regardless, though, despite all odds, it's going to be the 818 of MF Vetus that takes home the race win here this evening, and if nothing else has a little bit of bragging rights to go with, it certainly has no implications on the playoff whatsoever for MF Vetus, but he did manage to take home a race win, and sometimes that is half the battle. As the drivers make their way back around the pit lane, though, let's take a look down, see what our race results are looking like here. So, of course, race winner going to be none other than the 818 of MF Vetus. Ash in the 030 going to be the highest finishing Ottercar playoffs driver here, finishing home back in 7th. That's going to be Chris Cox in the 69, back in 3rd. August in the 21 going to be finishing back in 4th. With Sarah Something in the 777 rounding out the top 5. I believe that might be Sarah Something's best finish here in Ottercar Season 2. Back in 6th, that's going to be the last of the playoff drivers that finished inside the top 15. That's going to be the 11 of Ash with an E back in 6th. Back in 7th, that's going to be the 666 entry of Zoe, followed by Jeremy Albertson in the 985 machine back in 8th. 9th can go to the 88 of Ashley with Sarkin in the 901, rounding out the top 10. Back in 11th, it's going to be the 1 machine of Med, followed by Omri Sacramore back in 12th. Bloody Wolf in the 93 back in 13th, with 3rd in the 3 back in 14th. 15th can go back to Queen Ametrine, sponsored by Riot Games, with Madcap in the 38 back in 16th. 17th can go back to Pav in the 12 machine, who was having a really good run up until the end there. Followed by Rally in the 26, who actually surprisingly not the worst finishing playoff drivers here. Because just behind Rally, that's going to be Dwayne Day in the 4. Dwayne Day was a playoff driver, and we might just see Dwayne Day get eliminated off of tonight's race. Past that, you have a limited time. Kevin 11, oh, you know, Deeg Valnar. And then Drop Table Roster and Lake finishing at the very tail end of the field here this evening. That said, race fans, that's all we've got here from Charlotte Motor Speedway. But that said, before we sign off on the stream here tonight, we are going to be taking a look down and figuring out who will be making it into our Championship 4 here this evening. So give me just I feel like this is the part where you tell me my microphone's been muted for the entirety of the stream. Regardless, we're doing the math now to see where the championship 4 will be for the playoffs. I believe that I know who it's going to be, but I don't want to say anything for sure until I actually plug these numbers and we get a definite result here. I'll put on some generic music for you to enjoy while we figure these points out right quick. Got to do a whole bunch of stuff to spreadsheets. It's more complicated than it used to be to actually figure out how things are supposed to be looking here. But we've almost got things sorted out. Alrighty, there we go. Now we do some math over here. And we've almost got things sorted out. But hey, while you're sitting here waiting for me to get all of these spreadsheets and stuff figured out, if you haven't filled out the survey in the Ottercar Discord chat, I would much appreciate getting some extra feedback for figuring out what we're doing for season number 3, because it is almost time for us to be starting season number 3. As crazy as it is to say, only got one race left, and then of course we're going to be taking a bit of a break, but we're not going to be taking a full year and a half like we did last season to get season 3 underway. So as soon as we can get things figured out, the better. Let's see here. Alright, so I've crunched the numbers, and it looks like it's going to be our final results for the 4 drivers making it in to the Ottercar AI Racing Series playoffs. Going to be none other... Actually, is that right? Yeah, that is. Okay. So it's going to be Mad Cap, of course, who locked in on a win. Thirds, despite her poor finish here tonight, had just enough in points to be able to make it in. Ash with an E, going to be our 3rd driver for the playoffs. And then finally, the last spot, despite all odds, I really thought that it was going to be going to Ash without an E. But by a difference of 3 points, our final Championship 4 driver is going to be none other than Chris Cox. So with that, despite their best efforts here, Ash without an E, Ame Sakuramori, Dwayne Day, and Rally will be eliminated from the playoffs. We will not be seeing them in the Championship 4 next week at Sebring. So of course all this information will be posted over in the Discord server here in just a moment, but that is how things are going to be shaken off for next week, where one of those 4 drivers we listed will be taking home the championship of Ottercar Season number 2. That said, that's all we've got here tonight for Charlotte Motor Speedway. Thank you all for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.